Colombia hasn't played since May. May 31st was the last game. They played Venezuela's under-20 squad, which I'm not really sure. Well, it's senior teams playing an under-20s team. They won the game 8-0, so that tells you all you need to know about, the strength between younger, older players.
Right.
My prediction for Colombia, I think they have a lot of defensive struggles, and even against New Zealand. I think New Zealand pulls off a goal. I think they pull off 3 points against Colombia. I think they finished dead last with a point. I'm not sure they're going to get the point against. They may not even get a point. But I think Colombia will falter at this year's Olympics and not get out of the group.
Right. One thing about Colombia, if you look back at the results in the last World Cup, they actually did beat France 2-0 in the group stage. And that's why I'm holding a little bit of hope for it. I mean, obviously, again, we beat them 7-0. Then we came back and beat them 3-0. I don't have too many hopes for them, especially with one of their best players, Urele Rincon, being hurt. I mean, if you do remember some of the drama in last year's World Cup, some of the comments Lady Andrade made about the U.S., obviously she did absolutely nothing against us. But if you take away some of the cockiness and some of the results, she is a good player, and she is capable. She's kind of like a Marta-type player where she can take a game over by herself. Nowhere near as good as Marta, but she is that same type of player where she could have just a moment, get a goal against a team. I guess that being said, I think that will probably happen against a New Zealand and not as much a U.S. or France. So she's one of the reasons why I have them finishing third over New Zealand in the group.
So when Colombia does play New Zealand, and that'd be I believe that's the second game. Yeah, it's the second game. How do you think Colombia is going to match up against New Zealand?
Again, I think with New Zealand it's hard because they have the younger team, and we haven't seen them play in so long at this point. It is really hard to say. Like you said while we were talking before, it's going to be 2 months between their last games when they start this tournament. And again, I'm basing this result more on what I know about Colombia than what I know about New Zealand. And I do know that Lady Andrade is a decent player. I do know that they have had these quote-unquote surprise results against France in the past. And that would be more or less where I'm getting this result from.
All right, so I have a U.S. very, very large win over Colombia because I've seen what they can do against Colombia. 7-0, pretty big scoreline. I don't think it's going to be quite 7-0 because I think the U.S. is going to rest some players before the knockout stages.
Right.
But I have it going 2-0, 3-0. What do you think is going to be the result?
That game, I would probably go a 3 or 4-0 just because Colombia's probably going to have nothing to play for when it gets to that point. I don't think if they do, it'd be a very big surprise. But either way, I think we are going to beat them. I think we probably will rest players, but us resting players with an 18-woman squad is still us playing some of our best players.
Yeah.
Like you might let Mallory Pugh get a game in instead of Tobin Heath. You might let Ali Long come in and give Morgan Brown a break. These are still very, very good players. So I don't think the talent level drops down very much at all when you get into our bench.
I do think Kristen Kress will start for Alex Morgan in that game. I think Alex Morgan plays the first 2 games, rest this one for the knockouts.
Yeah, and Kristen Press I love watching her play too. If you've seen her play in the past year or so, she has been great off the bench. That's kind of the role she's kind of developed into for the United States. Just because Alex Morgan does kind of have that spot on lock. But she's come off the bench. She's accepted that role. I think she's really thriving in that role.
It's kind of like what we want for Darlington Nagbe and Christian Pulisic. The come-on, dynamic playmaker, but, the men are ranked 31st compared to the women.
Yeah, the men are a whole other story.
Maybe we'll get to it one day. All right, so hypothetically, the U.S. get out of the group.
Right.
Just saying. What do
maybe.
What do you expect from the USWN going forward as far as knockout?
The first knockout stage is going to be against the third-place team in either Group E or F. And, looking at it, it's probably going to be either a China, Sweden, maybe a Canada. I don't see us anything other than winning that game, honestly.
Looking at the teams you just listed, it's not I don't expect to lose any game, let alone against the type of China, Canada. I mean, I expect to win no
Yeah.
matter who we play.
Right.
All right, moving on to the semifinals. More than likely Brazil.
Yeah,
Just
that's what I'm looking at. It's probably gonna be Brazil.
yeah, but Brazil, not a bad team. Make it to the semifinals of the Olympics. But what do you look for the U.S. to do against Brazil?
I mean, us still trying to take it to them. I know Brazil is a good team, but we are the best team in the world. It's kind of like the same thing, kind of what Jurgen Klinsmann wants us to do is go at these big teams. The same thing, I expect us to still go at these teams. I expect us to control this game. We do have better players than Brazil has. Brazil is a good team, but we're still a better team. I expect us to still take it to them. I expect us to play the same way we have been, same way we're going to probably play against France. Obviously, we're not going to have complete possession of the ball, but I don't expect us to kind of just kicking the ball around either. I expect us to take control of this game.
As we get in these tournaments, we saw with the U.S. They really got into a groove in the Copa America when they started playing Costa Rica, then they play Paraguay, then they play Ecuador. When do you think the U.S. will start hitting their groove? You think it's going to be the quarterfinal, or you think it's going to be this game? It really peak.
See, it is hard to say with that. I'm hoping it's not just in the group stage. But honestly, I think we're going to play well in the group stage too. If you look at the track record Jill Ellis had in the last World Cup, we did have a slow group stage. Again, Rapinoe kind of drug us through it, and we really hit our stride in the knockouts, which is obviously what you hope for. That's what
That's what we all. That's what we
Germany
all
has
try
such
to
a good
strive
habit
for.
of doing in the men's tournaments too, is they always start a little slow and then pick it up. I think having that game against the quarterfinal really is going to help us just get back to just the way we play because we're just going to be a good team, not a great team. That'll really help us get our shape together. That'll really help us just get back to playing how we want to play after the Colombia game, which will probably rest players, and it'll help us just really get back into the groove. So I would say that quarterfinal game is going to help us get back into the groove. Even if it starts out a little shaky, that's when we expect to play us our real full strength roster just because of the injuries we do have with Heath and Morgan right now. That's when I really do expect us to really kick it up a notch, would be into that quarterfinal game going into the semifinals.
I kind of consider the group stage match kind of extended Olympic warm ups because it's New Zealand, it's Colombia. Obviously, the France match is gonna be something to watch, but I think the U.S. are gonna hit their stride around the Colombia's game. They're gonna start to feel comfortable. They're gonna get adjusted to the Brazil weather because it's really freaking hot. Um, I think the U.S. will start to hit their stride quarterfinals. I think they're going to peak at just the right time at the end of the semifinal, and I think they're going to start off strong in the final.
Yeah, I mean, it is important to make sure we are in our stride in that time because the last thing you want is to have a really good group stage and then
Uh,
it's kind of get shaky towards the end, which I don't think will happen. Because of the injuries we do have, the people coming back, I don't. If anything, I think we'll be shaky at the beginning. I mean, you do have Carly Lloyd just now coming back from injury. She's fresh. There is absolutely no reason for say somebody like Carly Lloyd to start out strong and then get worse because she is so fresh. If anything, it'll take her a little bit of time to get back into form, and then she'll be kicking to go by when you look at the semifinals. So that would be a scary thing to be good in the group stage and not, but I just don't see that happening just because of the patterns of play we have.
yeah, I think the U.S. women, because a lot of them are just now being included in rosters like this. I think they'll start to gel around this point and find their path.
It's definitely the hope.
All right, moving to the final. Assuming the U.S. makes it this far, it's not a far off assumption, but as you told me earlier before we started, it's going to be France or Germany. Under the assumption based on
Right.
how good they are. But where do you think Germany is? Because we already talked about France. Where do you think Germany is as a team going into the Olympics? How do you think they're going to look if they make it to the final?
I mean, I think they are one of the better teams in the world still. I mean, I think they're probably the number two team in the world. I mean, you look at the roster they had in the last World Cup. They no longer have Sausage. They no longer have their keeper Angerer. So there will be some new names in there, but I still think they are a very good team. I mean, like you were saying before the podcast, before this thing, that they're perfect in Euro qualifying. They've beat teams. I think what did you say, Ghana 11-0
Yeah,
or something like that, and
in a
they've
warm-up game.
and they're doing the same type of stuff we're doing to these teams. And I think it's gonna be a tough game. I mean, you remember in last year's World Cup, the main reason we won that game is because Sausage missed that PK, and Germans don't miss PKs, and we very well could have went into extra time. We could have lost that game, um, just like that. I mean, it was one post away. I don't think Solo had that covered, but anyway, as far as we go back to this year, we beat them in the She Believes Cup uh, for that final. I
2-1.
think, yeah. Um, I expect that same type of game. It's pretty much the same names you're going to see if they do end up in the final with Germany. It could be France too. We've already talked about them. Um, yeah, I mean Germany is still a very strong team. They make me nervous, just like France does, especially this being a knockout game. Whereas we can deal with a draw against France, can't end like that obviously in a final.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. And if we play France again, I think we got to attack them the same way with a little bit more intensity since this is a final instead of a group stage match.
Right.
Which
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, whether it be Germany or France, I mean, obviously it could be like a Sweden if they sneak through. If Germany and France end up having to play each other, that could happen. I mean, there's obviously
yeah,
no telling it.
it all depends how the group plays out. But this
Right,
is all just we're assuming Germany's going to win. We're assuming France is going to finish second. And the U.S. is going to win.
right. Which is probably the logical assumption.
Yeah, based
But
on
yeah, I mean, if we ended up against France or Germany, I think both of those teams have the capability to beat us. I don't think it's a given against either of them. I think those are probably the only two teams in the tournament that we're not strong favorites again. I think we're strong favorites against Brazil. Same with Sweden. Um, those are really the only two teams I'd say we're not strong favorites. We're still favorites in my opinion because we haven't lost to these teams. We haven't lost to Germany. I don't even remember the last time. We haven't lost to France since the Algarve Cup final. I believe beginning of 2014. I want to say it's the last time we lost to France in competitive play. Um, Again, so I expect to win these games. Obviously, I'm expecting us to win this tournament. Anything could happen, but I say we are the favorites in these teams, and it could go either way. But I do expect the U.S. win.
all right. So you just predicted the U.S. win, and I don't disagree. I can't say I'm 100% positive. Hey, the U.S. is going to win the Olympics, but it, I think the U.S. will get the gold.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning of this video session, I think this U.S. team is honestly stronger than they were in the World Cup. I know that's a strong statement considering they were the world champions, but I think with some additions they've made, some of the replacements they've made, I think they are generally a better team. Because if you look at the beginning of the last World Cup, Becky Sauerbrunn and Julie Johnson had only played, 4 or 5 games together. They've had an entire year now. I think Lindsey Horan makes up for what Lauren Holiday we lost with her. I think Crystal Dunn has added more to it, especially if Rapinoe gets back fit and starts playing like she was. We have, I genuinely think we are a better team. That's why individually I would take this U.S. team over any other team in the tournament. But it is a tournament and anything could happen. That's the only real asterisk I'll put on it. But again, I do expect the U.S. to win.
All right. I know we ain't got much time left, but highest scorer in the U.S.
What'd you say?
Highest scorer in the U.S. Who do you think's gonna score the most goals for the Americans?
I gotta say Crystal Dunn. I mean, she's done it before in the last tournament that we were in. I mean, you want to say Alex Morgan, you think of her as a striker, but I want to say Crystal Dunn has just torn this last year up. She's in such good form. I think it is going to be Crystal Dunn, honestly.
Yeah, I think she's gonna score more off the wing, playmaker type. She's gonna run into the box, score screamer. She's. I think Crystal Dunn scores the most goals. Best player. I think it's gonna be Carla Lloyd again. And that's assuming, the U.S. wins all these awards. But just for the U.S., I think Crystal Dunn, Carla Lloyd, Hope Solo's going to play every game. So she's already the best goalkeeper U.S. women do. How well these players gel together. Most of them have played with each other before. See how Mallory Pugh does. But I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited, especially after having soccer every single day between the Copa and the Euros. It's been this month off has been pretty bad for me. It's the only time I know we're spoiled as soccer fans and having soccer all the time, but this month has been pretty hard on me. So I'm ready for it to start back, definitely.
And just think the English Premier League right around the corner, right when the Olympics end.
I'm ready for that too.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to do this again soon, man.
Thank you. You too.
All right. I guess we're done here. And as we say in America, don't score on goals.